Hello, I am Jimmy Tige, and this is our activity output for the subject of computer program midterms laboratory exam. So for the problem that we were given, we were tasked to create a code for a program that has four choices. The very first choice would be a calculator. The calculator should have four operators. The very first operator that the calculator should have is an addition operator. The second would be the subtraction operator. The third would be the multiplication operator. The fourth would be the division operator. For the second um, choice, it would be a program that discerns whether the number inputted by the user is either positive or negative. So if the program detects that the number inputted by the user is higher than 0, then it should be able to state that that number is positive number. Vice versa, if it detects that the number inputted by the user is lower than 0, then that number should be stated as a negative number. And last but not the least, if the number that is inputted by the user is 0 or is equal to 0, then that number should be stated as a neutral number. So for the third choice, it would be a program that discerns whether the number inputted by the user is odd or even. So if the program detects that the number inputted by the user is divisible by 2 with remainders not equal to 0, then it should be able to state that that number is odd, and vice versa. If the detected number inputted by the user is divisible by 2 with remainders that is equal to 0, then it should be stated that that number is even. For the fourth and last choice, it is a program that compares two numbers inputted by the user and puts and determines whether the first number inputted, the second number inputted by the user is the highest between the two. So let's say that um, the user inputs 600 and 900. The program should be able to state that the second number is the highest number and the first number is lowest. So since we have already discussed about what to do within the problem, we will now start our planning for the code, which is the pseudocode. So for the first step, we will begin with a terminator, which is going to be the start. And then the second step would be to declare our integers. Since we have four choices, calculator needing two numbers inputted, the highest or lowest needing 2 as well, the other even needing 1, and the positive or negative needing 1 as well. We will have 6 integers. So we will declare all of those as integers. It'll be num1, num2, num3, num4, num5, until num6. And again, we will declare another variable, which will be our strings now in the step tree. So for this, this is where we will input our choices for the choice and operator. So it'll be choice, variable, and operator, variable. For the step 4, we will now present to the user what choices do they have. So we will print choice colon new line or backslash n one calculator two which new, new line and backslash n again. Two would be the positive or negative number. Backslash n again. Three being the odd or even number. And last being the highest or lowest number. For our step 5, we will now ask the user to pick what choice have they made. So enter your choice, we'll print to them, and here will be the variable choice for the inputted answer. In step 6, here we can use the condition if now and ask the code if the user choice is equal to 1, which would be the calculator, we could now get in step 6.1, which would contain our choices or our calculate then statement. Then we could ask them to input their first number. This would be num1. Again, just repeat it and ask for the second number. I forgot the print. Which would be num2. And here, now we will ask them we will show them what operators they can choose from. So once again, we'll be using the new line. So first print operators colon backslash n. The first would be a, which would be the addition, backslash n again, b, which would be the subtraction, backslash n again, c which would be the multiplication, backslash n again, and d, which would be the division. So since we have now shown to the user what kind of operators they can use, we could now ask them as to what operator they want to use. So 6.4, we could print Enter your desired operator. This would be our operator variable. And now within the if statement, we could once again use another if statement. Step 6.5 would be if operator is equal to a, then here we could go for 6.5.1. Then we should firstly introduce, uh, say to the program that the sum would be equal to the addition of num1 added to num2. And for step 6.5.2, we can now show the result to the user. Let me just print the sum of num1 concat first and concat num2 do we need concat there? Since we now have the value of sum, we can now input uh, give the user their output. So first let's format this, um, which will print the sum of num1 and num2 is equal to sum. If the program sees that step 6.5 is wrong, then we will go to our step 6.6, which will have the else if statement. Else if, and this will be our second operator, which should be the subtraction operator is equal to b. Step 6.6.1 would be where we store the difference, which is equal to num1 subtracted to num2. Subtracted by. For step 6.6.2, this is, since we now have value of difference, we can now give the user the output. Print the difference of num1 and num2, let's put a concat here, is equal to concat difference. And once again, if step 6.6 is found to be false with the program, it would go to step 6.7, which is another else if, but this time it will be our third operator, which would be multiplication. If operator is equal to C, step 6.7.1, here we will introduce that product would be equal to num1 multiplied by num2. And at step 6.7.2, once again, we could present our output by just printing the product of num1 and num2 is equal to product. Last but not least, if the program sees that all three of this is false, and then it will go to the very last, which would be step 6.8, which is the else statement. Step 6.8.1 would introduce the quotient. The quotient is equal to num1 divided by num2. And our step 6.8.2 is once again the output. The quotient of num1 and num2 is equal to quotient. And since we are now done with step 6, if step 6 is found to be false, it should fall to step 7, which is where we would have the second choice. Else if choice is equal to two. Now let's go for our then statement, step 7.1. Then we ask for the user to input a number. Please or enter a number, which would be our num3. Now this is where we determine if the number is negative or positive. So step 7.2 would be if num3 is greater than 0, then at step 7.2 2.1, then it should print that um, num3 is a positive number. And vice versa, else if again, num3 is lower than 0. Once again, another output, 7.3.1, should print that num3 is a negative number. And last is step 7.4, which would state that else, it should be this, would state that step 7.4.1 print that num3 is 0 or a neutral number. And since we are now done with the positive or negative, we should now go to the odd or even. Now, step 8. Else if choice is equal to C or 3. My bad. I forgot to put. Since all of this is string, actually, we should put double quotations to all of our choices. Which would mean at step 6, 1 should have double quotations. At step 7, 2 should have double quotations. And at step 8, 3 should have double quotations. So at step 8.1, we once again ask for a number, print enter a number, and here is our num4. At step 8.1 or 0.2, we now choose if we now start with our another statement or conditional statement as to where if num4 is divisible by 2 with with remainders of 0 equal to 0. At step 8.2.1, the program should print that num4 is an even number. And step 8.2 or 8.3, this would be where else would be put, and if it was to be written in a detailed form, then it should be if Um, Num4 is divisible by 2 with remainder not equal to 0. But since we already have the first if and we only have two conditional statements, it should be just else. Else, now we go to step 8.3.1. Here we can print the output, which is num4 is um, num4 is an odd number. Now then, after that, we could go to step 9, which is our last choice. Else, we first in step 9.1 ask the user to enter first number, which will go into the identifier of num5. And step 9.2, once again, we will ask for a number, which will be our second number, which will be our num6. And we will use, once again, a conditional statement, which is if num5 is greater than num6, then here you can put the then statement, which would have print num5 is the highest number. And at step 9.5 or step 9.4, sorry, we would go with our else statement, which would have step 9.4.1 as print num6 is greater or is the highest number. Now that we have gone through choices 1 to 4, we can now end our pseudocode, which is our planning, and go on to the main code. Now we terminate it. Voila.
Good day, ma'am. My name is Mark Raven Esplana, and today I'll be showing you the flowchart I made for our program. Let's go through it and step by step kung paano ko siya gagawin. First things first, we begin here with the start. This shape is oval or terminator, represent a start or endpoint of the process. Next, we have the shape, the hexagon, or present preparation represent a setup to another step into the process. Nasa loob nito is declare integers num1 to num6. Declare strings chain choice, declare character operator. The next shape is parallelogram or input-output represent information entertaining or leaving the system. At ipiprint din natin sa loob nito ay loob nitong choice. 1 calculator, 2 positive, negative, 3 odd even, 4 highest number. Then another parallelogram ulit. Enter your choice. After getting their selection, we use this diamond shape. for decision making. It says if choice equal to 1, so if the user pick 1 for the calculator, ika- uh, if pumili siya ng 1 means true, dito tayo sa calculator section. Gagawin natin to step by step. uh, wa, uh, another parallelogram, enter first number, tapos another parallelogram ulit, enter second number, parallelogram ulit, operators, add, add, B subtract, C multiply, and D divide. Enter operator. Next is another diamond. If operator is equal to A, for the math part, kumuha tayo ng rectangle for computation, tapos parallelogram ulit para sa makita yung sagot. If A add sum equal to num1 plus num2, the sum is sum. If B subtract differences num1 minus num2, the differences is differences. Pareho lang siya for C multiply and D divide. Uh, for next, checking if positive, negative, or zero. If hindi sila pumili ng 1, means false, punta tayo sa isa pang diamond. Else, if choice equal to 2, paano siya gawin? Ganito. Another parallelogram, enter a number. Second is diamond. If num is greater than 0, true, positive number. Pag false, throw pa ulit ng isa pang diamond. If num3 is less than 0, true, negative number. False is 0. Sunod naman, diamond ulit. Else if choice equal to 3, another parallelogram, enter a number, num4, diamond, if num4 mod num2 equal to 0, true is even number, false is odd number. And dito sa part na to, maglalagay tayo ng else choice equal to 4. Dito, magagawa tayo ng isang parallelogram and ilalagay natin sa loob nito is then print enter first number num5 and isa pang parallelogram at nasa loob nito is print enter second number num6. And dito sa part na to, gagawa tayo ng isa pang diamond, another diamond. Ang lalagay natin sa loob nito, if num5 is greater than num6, and another parallelogram, which is true, at ang nasa loob nito ay then print the number num5 is the highest number. Nasa loob siya ng parallelogram. If false naman, another diamond ulit. Else, if num6 is less than num5, and then another parallelogram na the true side, then print the number num6 is the highest number. And sa next side naman, it's false. Then print the number num5 and num6 are both are equal. And then draw oval, it is end. Yun lang po. Thank you.
So this is the simulation of our group. Um, so here we see the output, here we see the process, and here are the pseudocode. You can see here are the pseudocode. So first, we start and declare the integer, string, and character here in the process. The integer, the string, and the character. Which is our integer is num1. First is the num1 and num2. The string is choices and the character is operator. So first, in step 5, we see that print choices, which is here. We see the output. Ito, lumabas dito is yung number 1 is calculator, number 2 is positive or negative number, number 3 is odd or even number, and number 4 is high or lowest number. So here in step 6, print enter your choice. Here, lumabas yun dito yung enter your choice. So then, for example, ang ilalagay natin dito is sa calculator, which is 1. So, nalaman na natin yung sa choices, is a string is 1. So, if, dahil pinili natin ang 1, ang 1 ba is equals to 1, which is true. Ang 2 ba is equals to 1, which is false. Yung 3 ba is equals to 1? No, which is false. Then, yung 4 ba is equals to 1? No. Then, nalalagay natin is false. So, ang tumama lang dito sa choices is yung 1, which is nag-true siya sa 1. So, magpo-proceed tayo dito sa step 7. If the choice is equals to 1, then print enter first number. Ayun, lumabas dito. Enter first number. Ang lalagay natin dito, for example, is 2. Then, yung num1 natin is 2. Tapos dito naman, ang lalagay natin is 3, for example. So, ang num2 natin is 3. So, then, pag enter natin, ang lalabas dito, ang next naman natin is dito sa sa step 7.3, which print the operators. Ito yung mga operators, which is letter A is addition, letter B is subtraction, letter D is multiplication, and number 4 is division. So, yun. Magpro-proceed tayo sa step 7.4, which is print enter your desired operator. Dito lumabas sa output is enter your desired operator. So, for example, ang lagay natin is A, which is addition. So, ang A ba is equals to A, which is true. Then, the rest is false na. Kasi hindi naman sila A. So, false na yan, yung rest. So, false equals to A is false equals to A is false. So, ang nag-true lang is yung A. So, magpo-proceed tayo sa addition. Dito, since addition yung nakuha natin, magpo-proceed tayo sa 7.5.1, add 7.5, if the operator is equals to A, then add num1 with num2 and get the value of sum. So, since A nakakuha natin, pinag-add natin yung num1, which is 2 plus 4, plus 2, plus 3, add, add the num1, which is 2, with num2, which is 3, to get the sum, the value of sum. Then, ang lalabas dyan is, ang lumabas sa output is 5.0 or 5. So, doon magtatapos yung ano natin, first simulation natin. So, ngayon, try naman natin is yung subtraction. So, ang first number natin is 2, and second number natin is 3. So, dito sa operators, ang papili naman natin ngayon ay subtraction, which is B. Then, ayun lumabas, dito, ilalagay natin sa process natin is B. So, B is equals to A is false. B is equals to B is true. B is equals to C is false. And D is equals to B is false. So, dito sa pseudocode, if we pick the B, which is subtraction, dito sa else, if the operator is equals to B, then subtract num1 from num2 to get the value of difference. So, subtract natin yung num1, which is 2, with num2, which is 3. Then, ang makuha nating difference is ang mapiprint dito is the difference of num1 minus num2 is yung makuha nating difference, which is mapiprint dito is the difference of 2 minus 3 is equals to negative 1.0. Negative 1.0. Then, yun siya. Lalabas na siya sa output. Then, natapos na siya. So, ngayon naman, try natin is yung multiplication. Pipiliin natin dito is C. So, ang operator natin dito is C, character. Then, C is equals to C, which is true. The rest is false. Since di naman sila C. False. So, dito, lalabas if then multiply sa 7.7.1, multiply the num1 with num2 to get the value of product. So, pinamultiply natin yung num1, which is 2, with num2, which is 3. So, then, proceed tayo sa 7.8, which is print the quotient of num1. No. Print the product of num1 times num2 is equals to product. So, dito, mapiprint since ang product ng 2 times 3 is 6.0 or 6. Then, dito, ipiprint natin is the product of num1, which is 2, times num2, which is 3, is 6.0, which is the product. Then, matapos tayo dun. So, ngayon naman, last sa choice number 1 natin is division, which is letter D. So, sa step 7.8.1, if nakuha natin is letter D, which is D, ano natin dito is letter D operator, D. So, dito, A is equals to D is false. B is equals to D is false. C is equals to D is false. And D is equals to D is true. So, magpo-proceed tayo sa division. And divide the num2 is 2. The num1 is 2. And with the num3 is 3. So, 2 divided by 3 is equals to 0. So, dito, sa step 7.8.2, print the quotient of num1 divided by num2 is quotient. So, dito, lalabas sa output is the quotient of 2 divided by 3 is 0.0, which is yung kung ano yung lumabas. So, doon magtatapos yung sa choices number 1 natin. So, ngayon, ang gagawin naman natin ngayon is yung sa positive or negative number. So, ang pipiliin natin dito is 2. So, 2. So, dito sa pseudocode natin is yun ay step 8. If choice is equals to 2, then print enter number. So, if equals to 2, enter number. So, dito sa process natin, sa choices, yung 2 by ay equals sa 1, which is false. 2 by is equals to 2, which is true. 2 by is equals to 3, false, and so on. So, ang nag-true lang is 2. So, lalabas dito yung enter number dito sa step 8.2, 8.1. Then, example natin dito sa num3, lalagay natin is 3. 3. Pili natin ay 3. Then, if num3 is greater than 0, then print the number num3, which is 3, is a positive number. Else, if num3 is less than 0, then print the number num3 is a negative number. Else, then print num3 is 0. So, example na is 3, diba? Then, lalabas dito is the number, which is 8.2.1. 8.2.1, the number num3, which is 3, is positive number. So, doon magtatapos yon. So, paano naman kung negative number? So, ilalagay natin dito is negative 3. Negative 3. So, ang lalabas is negative 3 is a negative number. So, yun sa positive and negative number. So, ngayon naman, ang pipiliin naman natin ngayon is yung sa odd or even number, which is, ito yung choice, is 3. So, ang choice natin dito is 3. So, yung sa choices ba, num1 is equals to 3 is false. 2 is equals to 3 is false. 3 is equals to 3 is true. Then 4 is equals to 3 is false. So ngayon, magpuproceed tayo sa step 9. Else if choice equals to 3, then print enter number. So dito, since 3 pinili natin, lalabas yung enter number. So for example, nalagay natin dito is 4. 4. So yung number 4 natin is 4. Is equals to 4. Then next is and then print the number. No, dito sa step 9.2, if num4, which is 4, is divisible by 2 with a remainder of 0, then print the number num4 is even. So 4 is divisible by 2 and have the remainder of 0. So since yung 4 is divisible by 2 and have the remainder 0, so ang lalabas dito ay even. Since yung 4 ay even number, magpo-proceed tayo sa 9.2.1, print the number num4 is even. So, paano naman kung odd siya? Then, ang lalabas dyan is the number num4, kunyari 5, is odd. Yun lang. Then, let's proceed sa highest or lowest number. So, ngayon, din naman tayo sa highest or lowest number, which is sa step 10. Else, 4. So, ang string choice natin is 4. Is equals to 4. Then, enter first number. Lalo dito sa 10.1, enter first number. So, for example, num5 natin is equals to 5. So, lalagay natin ito 5. Lalabas sa output. Then, sa 10.2 naman, print enter second number. So, for example natin, sa num6 natin, num6 is equals to 6. Lalagay natin dito is 6. Dito pala, nakalimutan natin ilagay, 1, no, 4. So, sa 4 lang siya mag-true. The rest is false. So, here, break tayo dito sa step 10.3 na tayo. If num5 is greater than num6, so 5, if 5 is greater than 6, what's that? Then 6, malalagay, ang ipiprint niya is the number 5 is the highest number. But if not, else if num6 is greater than num5, then the number 6 is the highest number. False. Nag-false. Hindi siya nag-true. So, ang lalabas dito is is yung sa else. If print the number 6 is the highest number. So, doon magtatapos yun. Pero kapag equal naman sila like 5, 5, false, then ang i-print niya is the number num5 and num6 are both equal. But since the 6 is higher than number 5, so 6 is the highest number.
Have our pseudocode and our flowchart. We can now start with our Java code. So we firstly have to import our tools. Which will be java.util.wildcard. Now we'll be making a new scanner to input all of our variables. So new scanner system.in. There we will be introducing our integers and our string. After that, we can now introduce to the user the choices that they can choose upon, which will be N1, 1 calculator, 2 positive or negative number, 3 which will be odd or even number, and 4 which will be highest or lowest number. Next would be for the system to ask the user to enter your choice. And this will be inputted onto the string variable of choice is equals to input dot next line. And since we now have the value of choice, we could use switch for choice and then for the first case, for case 1, should be the calculator. We will first ask for two numbers, which is first number or num1, and second number or num2. After that, we will now introduce to the user the operators that they could use, which would have 4, which is going to be addition, subtraction, multiplication, and division. After that, the system will now ask the user to enter their desired operator. And once again, since we now have our first, we will put the input of the user onto the variable of operator. It will be inputted onto next line. And then now that we have the value of operator, we can now once again use the switch case on the variable of operator. In case A, which will be addition, would have to introduce first that the sum or the integer sum is going to be equal to num1 plus num2, and the system should print out an output like this, which is going to say that the sum of num1 or the first number plus num2 or the second number is sum. And since we now have the output for addition, we can now break and move on to case B. In case B, we have the difference, which would be equal to num1 minus num2. For the difference, it should be an output of the difference of num1 minus num2 is difference. Since we now have the output for case B, we can once again break, move on to case C, which would be the multiplication. For the multiplication, once again, we'll introduce another integer, which would be product, which is gonna be equal to num1 times num2, which is once again that the product of num1 times num2 is product. Since we now have the output for case C, we'll go and break and go towards case D. Case D would have the integer of quotient, which will be equal to num1 divided by num2. Once again, the quotient of num1 divided by num2 is quotient, or the value of quotient. Now that we have all four, we could break and go to case 2. In that case 2, we have the positive or negative. So we will firstly ask for a number. So we'll enter a number. will be inputted onto num3. Enter a number, input it onto num3, and we will use if else statement here. So if num3 is greater than 0, the system should output that should print out that num3, or the number, num3 is greater than 0, or is a positive number. Else, if num3 is less than 0, then the system should print out that the number num3 is a negative number. Last but not the least, else the system detects that num3 is equal to 0, then it will say that the number num3 concat first is equal to 0, or is a neutral number. Since we now have all three conditions for case 2, we can now break and move on to case 3, the odd or even number. So once again, we will ask the user to input a number. This number would be inputted onto num4, input that next line or next int. After that, we can now once again use if else statement, and here we will ask if num4 is divisible by 2 with the remainders that is equal to 0, then the system should print out that the number num4 is an even number. And else, if num4 is divisible by 2, that with the remainders that is not equal to 0, then the system should print out that number num4 is an odd number. Terminator. I better remember. We'll delete this. And since we now have the two possible conditions for this, for case 3, we will now break and move on to case 4, the highest or lowest number. In case 4, we will ask for two numbers. So enter first number and enter second number. Which is num5 and num6. And once again, since we now have two of the numbers that we need, or the value of num5 and num6, we can now compare them by using if statement, that if num5 is greater than num6, and that means that the system should print out that the number num5 is the highest number. Else, if it is found out that num6 is greater than num5, then the system should print out the highest number num6 is the highest number. Terminate. And since we now have the two conditions for highest or lowest, we can now break and attempt to run. Since it is running, the explanation for output will be discussed by Mr. Andrew Galinero.